application. This is Murtis Simpson Walker Academy.
Yes. Okay, good afternoon. Yes, our next applicant.
Just the boys.
Yeah, Mecklenburg County application, Murtis Simpson Walker Academy for Boys. This will be their first round interview today. They are proposed for location in Mecklenburg County. Year one, serving K-5 with 240 students. Year two, they moved to grades K-6 with 280. Year three, K-7 with 320 students. Year four, K-8 with 360. Year five, it looks like K-9 with 400. At capacity, Murtis Simpson Walker would be a fully K-12 school with 520 students. That looks like around year 8 that they're anticipating meeting that K through 12 goal. Murtis Simpson Walker will provide food service, a reduced price matrix, with a partnership with local restaurant vendors in the area. They will utilize bus services for their students. They will use a weighted lottery for enrollment. They do not currently have a facility, although their proposed site is in 28105, which is points south and east of Charlotte, like bordering into Matthews. When you look at the zip code map there, that 28105 does span into Matthews, North Carolina. There is not an LEA impact statement that was submitted. They are not a repeat applicant and not using the services of an EMO or CMO. However, their application assistance was provided by consultancy by Charter Success Partners, and their application was deemed complete by the Office of Charter Schools. So now I will allow Ms. Cynthia Johnson to make the 10-minute introduction and opening statements. Reminder that the recommendations today are to send to SBE for approval, send to SBE for denial, or hold over for a second round. So I'm going to turn the floor over now to Ms. Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you for having us this afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Cynthia Johnson. I am the chairperson for the MSW Academy for Boys Board of Directors. I am a school counselor with 20 years of experience. I have received numerous awards for my work in the community with my concentration working with boys. I started the Youth Entrepreneurship Program under my nonprofit, the Murtis Simpson Walker Youth Leadership Foundation, Incorporated, in 2010, and started the Rising Stars Boys Program in 2014. During the 2019-20 school year in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, they had 414 more males dropped out compared to females. The state dropout rate had 2,843 more males than females. Also in 2019-20 school year in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, they suspended over 3,000 more males than females. Our focus is the whole child, including the parents in their child's education and giving boys the tools to succeed as young men in a changing world. Will encourage our students to stay in school and be purposeful young men and purposeful driven. We also want to give them the opportunity to gain an appreciation of music and to develop a business mindset. This will be instrumental in helping our young men become young men who are independent, critical thinkers, who will grow to be lifelong learners, mentors, community leaders, husbands, and fathers. Our next board member to speak is Mr. George Hunt, who serves as our vice chair.
Good morning, board. My name is George Overton Hunt IV, and I am MSWA. Through my dedication of music, entrepreneurship, I have donated countless of hours at various schools in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have led students receiving music scholarships for college and saved many from negative lifestyles. Running a successful business uses the same fundamentals as an accomplished musician. Critical thinking, the mastery of perfection, the problem solving is just a few things I've learned through my musical experience. MSWA will offer a strong vehicle that will build the future leaders and business owners. I am here to lead in any matter, to move the agenda forward, and to show young people how music and business can create a strong foundation in their lives. Thank you. And next up, we will have Ms. Yolanda.
Thank you, George.
You talk in the microphone.
Yes. Good day, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. So my name is Yolanda Brown, and I am a former adjunct professor at a local university to Charlotte, and currently I am a director of human resources at a global financial services organization in the Charlotte metro area. So since 1999, I have been a volunteer in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area, including CMS at various grade levels, from mentoring, reading, judging, final graduation essays, and also I'm a lover of education. And so I have served on a couple of boards, which includes North Carolina State University, as well as the Urban League of Central Carolinas of Charlotte Guild Board. I was an overseer, and as you know, as an overseer, you have to help leaders stay within the guardrails, and sometimes you make some really tough decisions along the way. I'd love to be in that board capacity with MSWA in our first year, first few years, and be an overseer for the school. I'd love to bring the passion I brought to the other organizations, and I'd love to see men succeed, boys succeed to men, rather. Just to let you know that my nephew was in the Rising Stars Boys Leadership Program for Cynthia, and we saw him really develop under the character education components that we're proposing in the MSW application. He not only grew to be a leader, he was very shy and withdrawn, but in time, he was also, in his 11th and 12th grade years in high school, a local youth volunteer for his town council, and that was tremendous to see that kind of transformation. I would love to see that transformation for other boys. I visualize hundreds of boys coming through the school and becoming leaders in our local communities and also national communities. I hope you also believe that that could happen too. So next up, my fellow board member, Candace.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Candace Moffitt, and I'm a clinical licensed professional counselor. And I have a long history of assisting youth through mentorship programs, through speaking engagements, and I also have 10 plus years of marketing experience. I have seen and been able to bring up to 1,200 to 1,300 people out in the community to be able to participate in different events. And so I'm happy to be able to do that with the Murchis Simpson Walker Academy for Boys. And so I also have a history of working with Miss Cynthia, with her other foundation, her nonprofit, with events in the past and marketing, and she truly does have a passion for seeing the youth soar, especially boys who are misrepresented. I will be the head of the marketing team on the board, and we will do everything that we can to make sure the school is marketed very well in the greater Charlotte area. We are currently using Facebook advertising, listservs, flyers to music schools. We will also be using public transportation and many other focuses. I do have an organization entitled Be You Be Beautiful for Girls, but I do believe that that boys are misrepresented, and so that is why I'm here today to help push this vision forward. And so I'm excited to be a part of this new and thriving school, and I'm so excited to see what is to come from today. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melinda Bell, co-founder of Christ-Centered Community Counseling. In addition to trauma treatment and helping the community members get connected with social resources, our agency provides trauma-oriented, school-based social emotional learning services for 3 schools in the Charlotte area, 2 of which are charter schools. According to research, Trauma-informed social-emotional learning in the classroom has been shown to decrease school violence, unexcused absences, and increase test scores. As a trained resilience educator, I regularly lead professional development for teachers and community members on social-emotional learning, trauma, parenting, and preventing suicide. I also work closely with our partner schools to develop ways to incorporate restorative discipline, thereby reducing rates of suspensions and expulsions. I'm a North Carolina peer support specialist and a North Carolina certified alcohol and drug counselor intern, but my passion for MSWA hits home. Although he was a bright student, my son came home regularly from kindergarten begging not to go back. The traditional school environment was not able to meet his needs as a growing young boy, so much so that I decided to homeschool him for the next 4 years. Had MSWA been around at the time, it would have given my son an opportunity to thrive in a place where he could learn kinesthetically and explore his love for music without ridicule. With my passion for education and expertise in trauma, I'm committed to help MSW find the right team and the right training to make sure the school is successful. Now you will hear again from Ms. Cynthia to read the bio of Cedric.
In the absence of Cedric Steele and Ms. Corrine Wilson, they had work obligations with Cedric. Unfortunately, he could not be here with us today, and Ms. Wilson had a medical procedure in which she was unable to be here today. So I will move forward and read and give you all more information about them, their introduction. Well, good afternoon again. Cedric Steele is a native of Charlotte, North Carolina. He is the product of Charlotte Mecklenburg schools. His alma mater, West Charlotte High School, is where his love for working in the human services started. He eventually returned to the area, and while working at West Charlotte High School, was tasked with assisting the financial secretary with the financial works of the school. This is where his love for accounting started. Every job that Cedric had in the last 20 years has included governmental accounting and purchasing duties. Cedric has a certificate in governmental purchasing from UNC Chapel Hill Institute for Government. For 12 years, he managed a $1.2 million budget at CPCC with no deficit. Cedric is no stranger to how budgeting and accounting procedures work for education, government entities, and nonprofits. Cedric supports the mission and vision of MSWA and will ensure that as a board member, the young men of MSWA will continue to thrive in the community with a purposeful driven program of music, entrepreneurship, and character. Ms. Wilson is an exceptional children's teacher at Sugar Creek Charter, and so she as well has an extraordinary passion for children and working with our young boys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those introductions. What we'll do now is we're going to deliberate and we're going to come up with questions that we have.
Okay.
But just probably I would recommend you jot them down because we'll give you all our questions and then we'll allow you time to respond to those questions.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to share just a comment that I read from a board member about Mrs. Cynthia Johnson. And when they're asked why did they join this board, it really shares your heart. This person said, I feel passionate about Cynthia's foundation and the work she's been doing in the community. Her community work extends to boys of various backgrounds. She has provided college tours, etiquette courses, and technology programming coursework. She also held entrepreneurial programs for youth. So just commend you for what you're already doing and your heart for the young men in your community.
Thank
I thought that
you.
was an outstanding statement.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you want to get two questions.
Yes.
I have similar questions that if you've listened, you may have heard earlier. The single gender, the data that supports an exceedingly persuasive reason, factually, that excluding girls from this program with music and the Hope K-12 character development, that's what will make boys successful, that they need a single gender environment. And your budget as well I don't understand how I don't see support for the musical instrument component, for all of the music that you plan to incorporate. I just don't see that in the budget, as well as concerns in the budget, and you may have seen it too, the child nutrition, which comes to about 46 cents a day per child, based on your budget. The maker spaces, the laptops, the media center and books and everything, I'm not seeing the budget support the mission, so I'd like you to talk about that.
Are there other questions from board members?
I'd like to know more about your entrepreneurial curriculum. For entrepreneurship. And
this is Bruce. Same question I had for the earlier applicant, which I think some other raised as well, which is demand, and again, in an area that has a lot of school choice already. So how are they going to recruit your students as well as the teaching staff?
Let me piggyback on that too, Bruce, because this budget also has no raises for teachers and staff for the full 5 years of the budget. And we talk about recruiting teachers and retaining teachers. That would need a second look.
And one of the things that I had was that you don't have any guidance counselor that I didn't see in the budget. And also talk to how you feel you're gonna meet the target population of having 90% EDS for just male students, how you intend to market that. And then also, based on the square footage that you have of your building, you talk about it's gonna be $24 approximately per square foot, 33,000 square foot facility. And based on that, it would be almost $800,000 in the budget, but even year 5, the maximum you have budgeted is $645. So I just was wondering how that was gonna work. And then also along that lines, there's another part where you talk about the facility may be 41,000 square feet, which again is fine. I know you haven't nailed that down, but your utilities seem very low, given whether it's a 33,000 or 41,000 square foot facility. They're less than $1 a square foot. That's what they come out to be. And then there's also a startup budget in there of $225,000. And just what were your plans for funding that? It was a very detailed plan, but again, it was a startup budget of $225,000. I wasn't sure where the funding was gonna come from to support that. And also the budget in transportation. You only had $20,000 budgeted in transportation. But it just, that doesn't seem enough based on your plan that you laid out.
I was looking at the goals, just want to hear some rationale towards the academic goals. Some of the numbers are put there, what's the thinking behind it, but then more specifically, I really believe that the goals help determine action, and the music goals were based on participation. I didn't see entrepreneurship goals. There was some PBL stuff throughout the application that I'm not sure how it's being utilized and whether that's a core part of the program or not, and does that have goals? And then the food services plan, I don't know, there's like 2 different paragraphs there. One's about local restaurants and the other one's like, we're gonna do the national, or comply with the guidelines of it. Are you in the national school lunch program or not, I guess? So.
And I'll just say again, teacher recruitment and retention, but let me sort of just focus that a little bit. Let's say that there's a fantastic teacher, has plenty of job offers. What are you going to tell him or her to convince him or her to teach at your school as opposed to a school elsewhere in Mecklenburg County?
So if you'd like to address some of those questions, then it may spur other questions from us.
Okay, as far as addressing for the amount for the school lunch program, so we will be applying for the National School Lunch Program, which will provide more funding, which of course once approved. And As far as raises within the application, there's no revenue increase projected each year. Therefore, we held a flat expense rate. If we receive state per pupil increase each year, we will increase the salaries the following year. As of course now, we're not, it's a flat rate. So as far as next year, once that rate increases per pupil, we will be able to apply for raises. And as far as for startup funds, I'm just trying to remember all the questions. As far as for startup funds are provided by facility development firms, which with the performance capital. And the targeted population of EDS weighted lottery advertising in Charlotte, as far as a part of on the transit system. And then I'll have Yolanda to go into more detail with the additional questions.
Ms. Johnson, I'm sorry, there was one thing that I failed to mention is that the demographics for the student body were not in the application. Did anyone else find any? It was blank when you go to the demographic spreadsheet that's attached. There's nothing there to tell us the breakdown. Do you have that? Or
The demographics.
does someone there have that?
We have 200.
By race and ethnicity?
You populated on mine.
Pardon me?
You populated on Illusion for me.
Okay, I couldn't get it to it. I opened it several times.
If it's right, this says 90%.
Okay.
Yeah, just it
Racial
didn't,
and
it
ethnic,
was,
75%.
yeah, 'cause it wasn't
ethnic
broken
is
down.
engaged.
So I saw that, 90% what?
Yeah, ethnic, it said 90% ethnic, that's
Racial
how it
and
was
ethnic.
written, yeah, racially
It
ethnic.
would be majority of African American and Hispanic students, and then the 10% of others, as far as Caucasian and Hispanic students and Asian students.
Okay.
Well, Cynthia did add, hi, I'm Yolanda. Cynthia did add that bit, but I also want to say in regards to attracting teachers, especially there was a question about how do we keep them attracted. Well, we're aware, working in the school system, some of my board peer members aware of teachers that would find our particular charter school very attractive because of the character, Hope K-12 character education. In addition, in our high school levels, teachers really get to be involved when it comes to the curriculum. I mean, we'll definitely use the North Carolina standard stand-up curriculum. However, we also are providing teachers with that kind of autonomy where they get to really be involved in the classroom. In addition to that, we have a great program when we think about the kinds of workshops we'll offer to teachers. And in addition to that, pairing up with veteran teachers, with teachers with, per grade level, teachers that may have been, newly out of college, with more veteran teachers, to always have that excitement and kind of peer mentorship and growth levels, keeping them engaged, during the school year. So, I just wanted to share.
And then in addition to a part of our program, we will be utilizing project-based learning. It is a core part of our program, along with the Lucy Calkin curriculum that we'll be using for English and language arts, and Bridget's math curriculum, in which we will be using for the elementary math as well. And then we are allowing our high school teachers as well as middle school teachers to as far as a leadership component with them to choose their own curriculum when it comes to the math or the language arts, depending on their grade level and the needs of our students. Now, as far as project-based learning, like I said, it is a core part of our program. And with young men, we know that our boys are hands-on, period. And then with the project-based learning, they will be able to include that with the science and social studies, and also with in the lower grade levels in core classes and in the upper classes as well. Project-based learning, where students will be able to engage with the community and will be able to organize programs outside in the community that sits close to home with them.
What was the thing you said about choosing? I didn't hear that.
They will be able to choose different projects with project-based learning. Mhm. They will be able to have the
Let's go back to
creativity.
The teachers are gonna choose their own
That
curriculum
one.
by
Yeah,
grade.
that one.
Oh, okay, that question. As far as I know, in the application, we did not select a curriculum for the middle school and high school students, as far as with language arts and with math, the math component. So of course, we are supporting the North Carolina Standard Course of Study, but we're also giving the opportunity as a leadership opportunity for teachers to really sit down and to look at different curriculums, of course, well, in enough time to select a curriculum, giving them the option based on the population that we are serving.
And
But every grade
entrepreneurship?
will pick a different curriculum?
No, not every grade, no. It'll be the grade level, whether it's high school or core, high school or middle school.
So the department.
Yes.
And the entrepreneurship curriculum?
Okay,
How would that look?
Okay, as far as an entrepreneurship curriculum, now in high school, the students will have, in order to graduate, they will have to have 3 CTE classes, whether it's Entrepreneurship 1, Entrepreneurship 2, Entrepreneurship 3, business classes as well. Now, we have not, I guess, honed in or selected specifically an entrepreneurship program curriculum, but everything that we're doing is based on the National Standard Course of Study for North Carolina.
So will your kids be able to, well, the students,
Okay.
will they be required to, say, start businesses? The ones who are in high school, to get a real sense of what it means to start a
They
business?
will. That will be a part of their, as far as high school, in order to graduate, they will have to present a business plan in order to graduate, and they will present in front of a group which will be judged. So, yes,
Okay, thank
in
you.
order to graduate.
Thank you.
So what would the entrepreneurship program look like in grades K through 8?
Okay, so that's where the project-based learning will also come in. So, for example, in a kindergarten, if they want to have a community garden, and so they would possibly create garden material or what have you to sell. And that would be a part of their entrepreneurship program, getting their hands and their feet wet, and in order to understand what entrepreneurship is about. I actually did an entrepreneurship program this past year with second graders, and it was the basics, helping them to understand what entrepreneurship is. They sold hand lemonade, and so they understood the basics of what entrepreneurship is. They also they were able to market the product, so they understood the marketing piece, and so from there, and then they were able to sell the piece. So it gave them a sense of confidence.
What about the music curriculum?
Okay, so with
Are we
the
talking
music,
about every day, every grade?
yes,
And
and
then
I'll
when do
let
they get
George,
instruments?
and I will allow George Hunt to answer that question.
With the music piece, we'll use like different models. I'm a big fan of the Suzuki method. With music, we will start out with recorders, and I knew it was a question, something about how you can do the budget for the music and the equipment. When we first start out, a recorder is 99 cents, and a recorder helps with the breathing, movement of the tongue, which helps the language. It helps with the motor skills of your fingers. So it will actually help increase the handwriting in the muscles in the hand. So it will, in that curriculum, when they go to music class, just like a normal traditional school, they go to choir, they go to band, we'll do the same thing, but we'll use more so of using your motor skills, like a lot of people in the Western Hemisphere has done. A couple of studies that's done in University of Britain shows that students who use musical instruments have higher test scores and higher overall grades across the board. Not just STEM, not just English, not just math. No, it's across the board on an average. So evidence shows when we start kids using more fine motor skills, and when they start learning their second languages, when they're using their tongue in exercise, when they're using the wind instruments, or they're using percussion, which I'm a percussionist. So but developing their hands and their movement. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to start out with the budget part for instruments. As the more money we got, the school grows, we'll have a little bit more funding and wiggle room on top of one of the grants that we're going to aim for. As soon as we get the approval and get everything in motion the way we need it to, it's going to be Mr. Holland Opus. That's one grant that actually purchased instruments, and other grant opportunities we're going to be looking forward to. I also have a couple of real good friends. One is the CEO of Marvin Gaye Estates right now, Dexter Wiley. He's interested in getting Marvin Gaye Estates to donate a few instruments. Miles Overton from the Marines, just retired. He was President Obama principal as drummer and Joe Biden principal as drummer. He's interested in doing master classes and donating percussion instruments. Also, Ralph Hardiman, the #1 drumstick seller in the world, the name. So with me being here and willing to help and my connections, I don't think budgets for music instruments will be very minute compared to other things that may come up on that. Okay?
If you have a full understanding of what that looks like, I'd like you to elaborate a little more on the musical component, because I understand from the plan that grades K through 3 will have 3 music specials a week, and trying to envision what that looks like and how do they get in their other specials, and do they play recorders for 3 music sessions a week, or what else is going to help them enjoy and come to understand and appreciate music. And the entrepreneurship is the same way. I don't see the integration. And if you do see the integration, you've got to have teachers who are capable of integrating the music, the ideas behind the music and entrepreneurship into classroom studies, which is what the plan describes, but I'm just saying I don't see how that's going to happen.
So let me say this.
It's just a dovetail on that, so you can answer it all together. As I only see 2.5 special teachers budgeted in
That
year
too.
1, so I'm not sure who would be teaching these classes, because I'm not sure if 2.5 is sufficient based on the way you say the curriculum's going to
Okay, it could be very much sufficient. If you look at interdisciplinary studies, and research shows that more companies and bigger companies are using something that has more than one certification. What we're using it as, like music, it shows organizational skills, shows problem solving, it shows that you have to have discipline to practice every day. Well, if you run a business or ever run a small or major business, you need to solve problems, you need to be a critical thinker, you need to have organizational skills. So we're starting the fundamentals, how music is going to bleed over. So they will already have a head start on organization skills. They already understand basic organization. They understand the development of the discipline, becoming a musician. And when we get into the entrepreneurship part, they will already have the basic fundamentals through music. So when we're going back and hiring a teacher, we will hire a teacher. It's a lot of people with musical backgrounds that has interdisciplinary studies. Their minor might have been business too, as well as entrepreneurship. We will be marketing nationwide for teachers. Also, we have partnerships with UNCC, the department head of UNCC, the director of bands, Thurman Hollins at UNCC, the director of bands, Mr. William Bethea, Norfolk State University, Dr. Zachary at Prairie View A&M, Dr. Phillips, the department head at Prairie View A&M, Mr. Holden from Virginia State University. So we will be recruiting and looking for those students at different universities as well. So they won't just do recorders all day. To make it fun for them, we got to have some hands in it. Like drums are fun, percussion is fun. So one day it might be we'll start off mainly with kindergartens. We'll have do movement. So movement we'll do hand drumming. Then another one. Then the next maybe 4 weeks later we'll go through wind instruments, which will be the recorders. And then once we see these hands are moving and everything is moving fine, we go into the performance-based projects, like where they can build their own instruments, like shakers and things to that magnitude. So it'll be 3 different areas which we're working on. We'll hit more than one core part. The motor skills on there, will be the main thing, and it'll hit like the language, when they start learning how to roll their R's and make different pronunciations. That's what the recorders will help. And then the artistic of it, to have fun, everybody likes, I built this, go show their mom and dad. So when they learn how to build like shakers, and we'll leave it open to the teacher, not say this is exactly what you gotta do each day, but that's what we'll be looking for, and that's what will be communicated to the educator at that time. So it'll be more of an interdisciplinary studies part. It's not gonna be, I just do this, all I do is sing, I don't do nothing else. You know, the world's
I
not
haven't
moving
heard
into that.
anything
They're
about
moving
vocal
into
music.
that.
Is vocal music included?
And vocal music is included as well. So at the earlier grades, that will actually help with the pronunciation when they pronunciate the words into the actual lyrics into the choir. So the first kindergarten through second grade, when we get them on the recorders, once we get them into the vocal parts of it, then they can have the correct pronunciation and tell them the correct syllables and phrases and do the different articulations. So we start them at the ground roots of everything. And when we move up, then we'll move up to the next level because they already have the fundamentals of it.
Can I,
Go ahead.
can I change topics from music?
Yeah, I was gonna change topic from music, so go
Well,
ahead.
before you change topics, your 4th and 5th graders choose between band and chorus. What instruments will they play at that level?
Well, for band, for chorus, they'll use their voice. For a band, they will as they see fit, what the instructor sees.
Will the school provide instruments for the boys?
Yes, we'll provide it. Also, they'll have options if they want to rent their instruments. They can. If they don't, we'll have options that we do. Like on the standard school system, we'll have instruments, donated grants and things that
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, no problem. So, I have a friend who's done this work, all boys, economically disadvantaged, things like that. And he talks just about the enormity of it, like just the challenges, unlike a lot of what people do in this work. And I guess what I want to understand from you guys is what does it take? What are you putting in place to teach boys, to bring them up to speed, and the staff, and then the corresponding staff development? I'm not hearing enough of hearing PBL and this and that, but like when we start talking about students that may be coming in behind, when we're talking an all-boy population, what are you guys going to do right away to get people up to speed, but also to deal with the sheer energy and the magnitude of just having that concentration of a specific group of people in, and the staff and the corresponding staff development that goes with it? So I guess I'm probably directing you. It's not a music question.
Okay, so first of all, we understand that it is a huge challenge working with our young men, and so of course we did speak of the different professional developments as well as project-based learning. And so one thing that we will know, and then the population that we're working with, is we want to incorporate Hope K-12, that character education, because we realize that a lot of our young men, students, are lacking some of the social skills that will help them to move forward in the, from grade level to grade level, or even in the workforce. We want to build their social skills up. And so that's where Hope K-12, of course, will support that character education piece. And also, if necessary, of course, we have brought in one of our board members, Melinda Bell, who will also include the trauma piece. A lot of our young men, of course, especially if you live in the area of Charlotte, they may need additional, the families, not just the young men, but the families in general will need additional support. And so looking at the suspension rate, the dropout rate in Charlotte, it's very high as far as when it comes to our young men, especially the population that we are in. And so Help K-12, the character education program. And then of course, one of our project developments is focusing on trauma-based therapy, and that's where Melinda Bell comes in. And then as far as the music and the entrepreneurship piece, giving them different options. Even though there is music and entrepreneurship in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, our students, they have to take the music piece and they have to take the entrepreneurship piece. And also—
Can I interject 1 second?
I'm sorry.
No. I just want to make sure that we're using our time.
Okay.
You're going to have 240
Boys the first year.
coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are going to be multiple grade. A big portion are going to be multiple grades behind. you're gonna recruit a corresponding staff to teach that, and not only that, just the energy of 240 boys. I got 3 boys at home.
Right. And
Is is something else. So
It is.
what I want to understand is, I mean, and I'm trying to, I'm saying this some of this out of curiosity, is what is the mindset you have about, I'm taking in 240 boys who can be behind, what do I need to do, who do I need to recruit, and how do I need to train them?
Okay.
And I don't think need necessarily, it's more of an elevator pitch answer, but
Right.
like, this is how I'm thinking about 240 boys coming in behind, this is how I'm thinking who I need to do this work, and this is how I'm thinking how I have to train them.
Right, exactly, I understand. And so, one thing, I worked with, 13 years ago, when I started this task of working with boys and focusing on young men, I noticed that there was no one working with boys, whether they were high or whether high academically or low academically. And so I took on that task, and it was no easy task, because it was all black boys in a predominantly white school. And so when I took on boys who were considered at risk. And so what I did is I brought in men from the community. That was a plus. And then they dressed up once a week to show pride in themselves. And also including a rites of passage ceremony, getting them to think, getting them involved in community service, also having mentors. And so one thing, in addition to all that, is a community effort. And so we are working closely, and I have worked with different community agencies in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area as well. For example, Reggie Singleton, 100 Black Men, Building Better Brothers at UNC Charlotte. That's where our program was housed, in Charlotte. And so Westside Education Think Tank. And so we have strong ties in the community. I guess if you saw me and you saw my work and saw what I did, then you understand that mentorship is a huge program. But when starting this task of starting an all-boys school in Charlotte, I asked several men, what do you think is needed? How do you think this school will survive? Would you support? Of course, they said yes. And I remember one gentleman said, of course, we definitely need character education. They need to learn more manners, etiquette. And so when Pat Cannon was mayor at the time, he came in and did an etiquette session with our young men. We had Arkevius Armstrong, who is a well-known speaker in Charlotte. He came in and did workshops with the young men on social skills. We had Reggie Singleton also with Amel's Place in Charlotte. He came in and did numerous works with the young men as well. And so going back to your question, granted, we know boys are boys. There are a lot of energy. I know, I work with them. At school, I'm a school counselor, so I see. They come in with different emotions. And so how are we going to work with them? We will work with them with the support of the community people that that have said they are going to who have committed to work with us and volunteer. I know that what I can do, I know what my strengths are. My strengths and my ties are in the community. I am a go-getter. So once this school is approved, we will go out into the community, continue to go out into the community, and to recruit additional support. I have people already ready and waiting for the school approval, and who will support the school, and who will continue to volunteer, and who will come into the school and volunteer.
I hear lots of wraparound support built in.
Mm-hmm.
I see that
Right.
also in your board. What I don't see is academic support, and that's a little concerning since it's a school.
Okay, when you say academic support, as far as the teachers,
In terms of,
how
I
are we
don't
going to
hear the
recruit?
same, like when you talk about the wraparound services that you're gonna provide, that's very, very clear and very detailed. But when we start asking questions about the academic part of the program, we're not getting that same kind of detail, and I don't see that represented on your board.
On the board, as far as the academic piece?
Yes.
Okay, well, as far as I'm a school counselor, that's education. And then as far as Melinda Bell she was a former high school teacher. And then Miss Corinne Wilson is a exceptional children's teacher, and she could not be here today.
She texted me this morning and said she's not on the board anymore.
I don't think so. Corinne Wilson, not
Yeah,
with us.
she works for me, that's how I know her. And she texted me this morning and said she was no longer on the board, that since she came to work at Sugar Creek, she was no longer on the board. I don't know if y'all can work that out with her, but I'm just telling you what she did.
Okay.
In the
No,
interest-
we spoke to her today, and she did not mention that she emailed,
Would you
there
like
was
to
any
hear this
email
email?
correspondence.
I'll show you the email after. She definitely contacted me today and said that she was no longer on the board, and that the reason her name was still in the application was because the application, you had already submitted the application when she came to work for us, and it couldn't be taken back, which is true.
Okay, so what, we communicated, I guess, with the board that she had a medical, there was a medical emergency, that's why she informed us, that's why she could not be here today. There was she had a medical procedure today.
No, she's at work. She's there.
This is not going well.
Okay,
Okay, well,
so as far as
at
the,
this point, we have exceeded the
okay,
25-minute. So, if you guys could please just come up and just do a 10-minute closing statement, and then the board will deliberate after that.
okay, so working as a school counselor in the middle school 13 years ago, I noticed that there was little interest shown working with boys. I began to formulate dates on how to start a boys group focusing on young men to do great things and live a purposeful life. My first boys group was birthed, and it was called the Ambassadors. Every week, the young men would participate in sessions with different men in the community to teach them different skills that would enhance their life. For example, Damian Johnson, owner of No Grease, Rodney Monroe, former chief of police Reggie Singleton, and Nassar Ellerby were some of the speakers. The boys worked on time management, study skills, career choices, entrepreneurship, and life skills. The boys were expected to dress up on meeting days. We took yearly college trips. As my program grew, I decided to change the name to Rising Stars Boys Program. It was under my nonprofit, the MSW Youth Leadership Foundation. We began taking yearly college trips like Johnson C. Smith, North Carolina Central, Duke University, Morehouse, Georgia Tech, North Carolina A&T, Winston-Salem State, and Howard University. It is important to expect the best from our young men and give them the opportunity to be exposed to other options that may be outside of their comfort zone. One of my rising stars, Philip, was in 8th grade when he started the program. He was shy and very much to himself. After just 1 year in the program, he gained the confidence to step outside of his comfort zone by participating in oratorical contests and exploring his interest in film production. Following that year, Philip continued to participate in Rising Stars as a mentor to the other young men in the program. Now Philip is in his second year at Temple University, majoring in film production. Sometimes you may not think that what you're doing has an impact, but when you see students like Philip thrive, you realize that the importance of male mentorship program. MSW Academy is an expansion of what I have always done. It is time to move forward to give more young men the opportunity like Philip. Another one of my young men has a speech impediment and is ADHD. He's not into sports, but enjoys exploring other interests that other young men may not like to pursue. The Rising Stars Boys program allowed him to meet other young men that also enjoyed other interests outside of sports. Even though he has aged out of the program, he continues to volunteer. We also had great parent participation. We conducted parent workshops at UNC Charlotte geared toward working with your young men in social skills, homework, maturing as a young male. MSW Academy plan is to have parent workshops similar to what we plan with the Rising Stars Boys program. The Rising Stars Boys program had a rites of passage in which each participant spoke about what they learned from the program. Our guest speaker gave them encouraging and inspirational words to live by. MSW Academy will continue this tradition as each young man will participate in a rites of passage ceremony at the end of each year. They will be expected to learn and thrive as a young man should. We want to create a space for all young men to thrive and not be afraid to be the only one in the classroom who enjoys playing a musical instrument or who has an innovative idea that could develop into a prosperous business. MSW Academy is a unique school because it is focusing on the males in Charlotte with a program geared toward music and entrepreneurship in which all our young men will strive to be successful. Small grade levels, community service, parent workshops, accountability, respect, love, and mentorship. They have no choice but to succeed. George, huh?
As I stated in my introduction that I am MSWA. Imagine growing up in Washington, D.C. in mid-70s and growing up walking to school in the early 80s. In midway when the crack epidemic hit. Your city became from 40 murders in a 10-mile radius to 400 murders within a year. And then you name the murder capital of the world. And then you see your mayor on national or worldwide TV smoking this illegal substance. Imagine this inner city boy who has a learning disability, who's dyslexic, who has organizational skill problems. It wasn't that he saw letters backwards. It wasn't that he didn't understand basic commands or understand English or could not read. It was an organization. When you gave this young man, a new idea, it's like you took a puzzle box and dumped it, and he had to put the pieces together and organize it and put it together. Well, that young man I'm speaking of is the one you're looking at right now. A man with a college degree, college educated, and do a lot of community service and a lot of volunteer service. I own 3 businesses. Yes, I am the CEO. I started from ground zero all the way up. My net businesses are worth over $500,000. And could I have done that without music? No. As I stated before, music showed me the art of perfection, how to be a perfectionist, how you got to keep doing something over and over and over again. I had a choice. When I was walking to school, I had women ask me for sexual favors for my lunch money so they can go get high. I chose not to. I had another choice, or to stand on street corners with my fellow friends. I knew I had to go to band practice at school, so I couldn't hook school and go sell crack on the streets. That was the obstacles I was taking over. Washington, D.C. became really fast, really dangerous, because there's a lot of government workers making a lot of good money, and they can get high really quick for a really cheap price. So the obstacles between low self-esteem from a learning disability, I did not find out didn't have till 6th grade, repeated grades, and learn how to organize, how to express my ideas all through music. Music is a universal language. It has different and many layers. That was my vehicle to become the person I am. When I say I am MSW Academy for boys, this is who I am. I do not want the kids to have the same struggles as me and had to go through the pathways I go to be a successful business owner, entrepreneur, or whatever they would like to be in life. I'm here, like I said in my introduction, I have full support of this movement, and this is a very strong vehicle. And when it comes to the academics, without music, I wouldn't have had a college degree with a learning disability. And I did it without a 504 plan. So kids have 504 plans. They have more tools than what everybody else, than what I had, and I'm here to help them, guide them through, and they can do anything they want. It doesn't matter what obstacles you have. So that's why I'm here on the board. That's why I'm looking forward to your decision today. And I would like to bring Melinda up to finish our statements.
I think we're almost out of time, so wrap up real quick.
I have 2 boys, and they have a reputation for being a lot. However, in my work while I provide trauma services in schools around the city of Charlotte, we found that many of the behavior concerns young men exhibit are actually trauma responses. But teaching teachers how to recognize triggers, give students a safe place to share, and administration how to practice restorative discipline Trauma-informed training and social-emotional learning is shown to decrease behavior concerns and all around improve what's happening in the school. Overall, as you've seen today, we bring various skills and expertise to the board, and our dedication is unwavering. If approved, this school will produce young men with the drive to pursue their passions, persistence to achieve their goals, and empowerment to lead with integrity. In other words, Murtis Simpson Walker Academy for Boys will change individuals and communities for generations to come, one man at a time. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. So we're gonna now spend about the next 10 minutes deliberating and talking amongst us, and we're gonna have one of three outcomes, whether we can recommend the application to be approved by the state board, recommend the application to not be approved by the state board, or bring it back for a second interview. But we're gonna discuss that. We'll vote.
So I want to know if George plays the sax.
Yes, I'll play this next.
Sax. I could see you playing a sax. I thought that was your instrument. Okay.
That was basic.
I think that the wraparound services that are built into this are phenomenal and will be a great support to these boys. I did not hear the you know what I'm trying to say, you know that word, around the ed plan. And in the end, the academic program is critical. And I just didn't hear the same kind of detail, the same kind of plans that are clearly developed for the wraparound services. I just didn't hear that in the educational part of it. And that concerns me because what we're authorizing is a school.
I'm gonna agree. I thought there's a lot of things thrown out, from entrepreneurship to music to PBL to teachers choosing curriculums, and it felt like questions that should have specific answers regarding instructional vision, instructional support, for a very targeted group of students that, in my mind, I would think you need to come in with very, very detailed plans and vision to accomplish a goal that they're trying to accomplish. I would think it can't be one of those we'll build the bridge on as we walk on it. There may be other programs where that works, there may be other proposals, but it didn't feel like that. It felt like, listen, once we get all these great people together, we'll get it going. We'll have enough in there to put it in this and pull in that and do this, and we'll get it all there. But what's this? What is this? That's what
I kind of walked away with the, kind of like that, with this is a great program to support the kids as they go through whatever it is that they would do at school. A nice outlet, the stuff that you would get to support you to be successful in those things. But like you, Cheryl, I didn't hear the specifics about what are the educational components, the academic components of the school that these things can support or help grow. Because I'm a music person, I love music, and I agree with the research that says that folks who are involved in music, they're gonna be able to excel. But excel in what academics, and how is that being supported inside the school? Because I think it will show.
Yeah, and I would agree too, as far as the wraparound services are great, but I also don't see where the budget supports those wraparound services. I mean, there isn't a school counselor even budgeted in the first 5 years. So even though there's a lot of talk around those, I think those are great, but I don't see where there's money to support those programs.
That's such a great point. That one position is so integral to your mission, and it's lacking, it's missing in the budget. And I concur with my colleagues here. Reading the application, I hoped that things would be lifted up in the interview, and then we would hear that we would come to understand how all this is going to integrate together to turn into academic excellence or stronger academic performances and growth with this targeted group. And indeed, you're already doing a great work and are involved in a great work, and I know your heart to bring it into the school. But I feel like there needs to be more work done on tightening up that academic piece and the actual integration of those passions for entrepreneurship, which you exhibit, and for the musicianship, Mr. Hunt, and bring that together to form an academic program that will work, that's doable, and you're able to implement it, and it should be reflected in the budget. And so I feel like it needs more work.
I concur without being redundant.
We ask so much of our teachers, asking them to come into a new school and to do a great deal of curriculum work might be asking too much of them, and better to offer them a framework within which they can operate and create lessons that are designed for the unique needs of the students in the classroom rather than starting from scratch. I think they need that framework, especially for a new school dealing with what can be a challenging population. I have 2 boys at home, so it's not as bad as but so that's my biggest concern, hearing about the idea here.
I concur. I also have 3 boys at home, and a girl who runs the house. You know, as a guy who has spent a day or 2 in single gender education, I love this idea, and I think that integrating those things sounds really, really neat. But for those wraparound things to work, the academic plan, student discipline and behavior, classroom management, all of those things have to be on point for community volunteers and wraparound services to really work and extend those things. And like my colleagues here, I think that core is what needs work to support all those big ideas.
And, I'd like to point out that they're looking for 240 students in year 1, and they've already had 149 people submit their email with an interest. So we know the need is there in this population, and it appears that there's interest, and they're tapping into that interest group.
Is anybody prepared to make a motion?
I guess no one really wants to disappoint someone, and there's a lot of work into this, but if we're not ready, we're not ready. We don't want to move forward unprepared and accomplishing our best. So I will move that we do not move Meredith Simpson Walker forward at this time.
I would second that.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Becerra, would you take a roll call vote, please?
Yes. All right. Bruce Friend. Okay, I think he might be gone. Todd
Yeah.
Godby.
Aye.
Oh, there's Bruce.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I support the motion.
All right, thank you. Terry Stoops.
Aye.
Lynn Kroger.
Aye.
Cheryl Turner.
Aye.
Rita Hare.
Aye.
Hilda Parlay.
Approves.
John Eldridge.
Aye.
Eric Sanchez. All right, it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
So we get more light in here.
Yeah, we probably could turn, yeah.
Turn the lights up.
Claire, could you turn the lights up for us, please?
I know, I'm feeling the same way. I'm about to fall asleep.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hazy.
It is very bright.
And it's warm in here.
I'm just saying.
That wasn't it.
I think that was the wrong way.
Oh, is it time?
You don't have to go home, you can stay here.
I don't know, his phone looks pretty good. Oh, it's still-
It's not working?
I think it got working, guys.
Yes, he knows.
Here, wow.
The moonlight
That's too bright.
That's a big difference. Is there a middle ground?
Just a little. Woo. I tell you.
I'm gonna have to borrow Miss
Let there be lights.
sunglasses.
There you go, there we go.
Perfect.
Oh, that's a lot of it.
Yes, okay.
Okay, Ms. Vaquero, I would just remind you that I'm recused from Movement Northwest.
I'm having a hard time hearing it. Are we moving forward, or are we taking a quick break?
No, we're going.
We're moving forward.
Pushing through.
I'm gonna run the bathroom.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, Melanie Rackley with the Office of Charter School. Our next and final applicant for today is Movement School Northwest, Mecklenburg County. In year one, grades K1 with 250 students. K2, 360. Year three, grades K through 3 with 460 students. Year four, grades K4 with 555. And year five, at capacity grades K through 5 with 645 students. Movement School Northwest will utilize the school breakfast plan and the National School Lunch Program. They will provide bus services to their families. They will not utilize the weighted lottery in this application. They don't have a facility, although their proposed zip code is 28216. There has not been an LEA impact statement. This actually is, they are not a repeat applicant. We've actually heard from them in the Movement School Southwest in our previous application, accelerated round, but they have not had a denial. So they're not a repeat applicant in that regard. They are not utilizing the services of an EMO or CMO, and the Office of Charter Schools did deem their application complete at the time of submission. This is a school proposed for Northwest Charlotte. It looks like some of the areas with some of the charter schools within that 5-mile radius include Aristotle Prep, Mount Island Lake, and Pioneer Springs. We actually have Mr. Tim Hurley here. He will be given 10 minutes to introduce his board and make their opening statement. So I'll turn that floor over to Mr. Hurley.
Well, thank you all so much for giving us the chance to come and talk about Movement School Northwest. I know y'all have had a long day, so I appreciate y'all pushing through for us. My name is Tim Hurley. I am the board chair for Movement School. I'm joined by Ms. Carrie Ann T. Thomas, who is the CEO for Movement School and also a board member ex officio, and also Mr. Garrett McNeil, who is also a board member for Movement School. So last Tuesday, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools had a board meeting, and at that board meeting, Superintendent Winston talked to the pandemic as being one of the most significant disruptions of public education in our lifetime. And I think all of us in this room would agree that that is the case. At that meeting, they set an increased set of goals for CMS. The goal is to get 25% of their students to be career college ready in math by 2024. And they called those goals a moonshot because they thought it spoke to the ambition of what they're trying to achieve. At that meeting, the board chair also said, she said it's going to take some really different ways of doing things to get there. And what I would want to bring to you all is to say, I agree with them. The pandemic has been tremendously hard for all of us in this country, the state, and in Charlotte. And it is going to take different ways of doing things to help our kids catch up and succeed to the levels that we know they can. And that's why we're so excited to bring forward Movement School Northwest, because that is our goal and our mission, is to help students, particularly students of color and students from low-income communities, catch up and excel to the full potential that we know is possible. You should have in front of you 2 pages that I put together. The first page is a list of the work we've done since we met with the board last around Movement Southwest. But I'd like to first direct your attention to the second page, which is a list of our 3rd grade EOG test results for Movement School Freedom. And I think this is important to look at because this speaks both to the challenge of the pandemic. I don't think anybody wants to see scores like this on a page, as I know a lot of us who run charter schools don't want to see scores like we had during the pandemic. But when you look at how our first school, Movement School Freedom, was able to perform in comparison to both Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools overall and the schools surrounding Movement School Northwest, you can see we were able to help our students mitigate the damage of the pandemic, especially looking at the groups closest to our mission, which are economically disadvantaged students and Black students. Movement Freedom is 90% African American, between 80 and 90% economically disadvantaged. Movement School Freedom outperformed the district in both areas with that group. And we were 2 to 3 times the performance of the schools that are surrounding Movement School Northwest. And so again, as the district is saying we need new and different ways to help kids catch up, that's 100% what Movement School plans to be. The last time we were before the charter board, what I heard loud and clear from you all was we needed to build our capacity if we want to be able to keep growing at the rate that we hope to grow. And so we took that advice and have made a number of changes to add capacity to our operations. Within those changes we are adding 3 additional board members. 2 of those board members are focused on academics. So Jason Terrell, he is a former CMS teacher. He founded a national nonprofit called Profound Gentlemen, focused on recruiting and retaining Black men in education. And he's currently a program officer with the Walton Foundation. He joined our board in Q4. The next person is Dr. Allison Harris. She has her undergrad from Spelman, doctorate from Harvard School of Education, and she currently serves with Public Impact, helping to lead turnaround efforts. She'll be joining our board in Q1 of 2022. The last board member is focused on operations, because we know academics and operations are both going to be critical. It's Michelle Donnelly. She leads Movement Mortgage as their Chief Commercial Officer with an MBA from Harvard Graduate School of Business. We've also worked aggressively to get as much in place ahead of time as we can. So we've secured our school site for Movement School Northwest. We've signed our letter, it's under contract. It's in the heart of our targeted area, and this is one of 6 areas that the city has identified as being most in need of additional investment to help increase education, housing, and jobs. We've continued a strong recruitment campaign. Our applications this month are double what they've been in the past 2 years. Last year we had 300 kindergarten applications at Movement School Freedom, so if we continue at that pace, we'll be well above where we need to be, but we're encouraged by this initial increase in applications. We also now have 175 letters signed by families specifically supporting Movement School Northwest, so we believe the demand is there. And lastly, we've made a major investment in adding academic capacity. So we have hired a senior leader out of Achievement First. She's currently a senior director with the Achievement First Accelerate program. That's the program they use to coach other schools and how to be successful. And right now she's responsible for coaching 8 elementary school principals. So she'll be coming on board to directly support our 4 elementary schools. Prior to this role, she also served as a principal, academic dean, and teacher at Achievement First. And she's going to be starting with us in January. We're not waiting until the summer. We're bringing her on board immediately to help make sure we are prepared to grow and grow well to serve our students. With that, I'd like to turn the remainder of my time over to our CEO, Carrie Ann T. Thomas, to talk about the academic work that we've been progressing on.
Greetings, everyone. Carrie Ann T. Thomas. I'm here to speak about our academic progress so far. This year at Movement, we are taking the MAP assessment for our mathematics assessment. MAP stands for Measured Academic Progress, which is a nationally recognized assessment and a nationally normed assessment. We know that it's not just enough for our scholars to compete locally, but they also need to be able to compete globally. So this is why we are moving towards this type of assessment. When we took this assessment this past fall, recently, we saw that our students were doing incredibly well. If you look at Achievement First, which is a nationally recognized charter organization that is a high-performing charter organization, they are at par and competing with Achievement First. And these assessments that we took just as of 3 weeks ago. That's for math. In terms of reading, at Movement we take STEP, which is Strategic Teaching Evaluation Progress, for our reading assessment. While MAP is new this year at Movement, STEP is something that we have been taking since 2017. And our students, if you look at their historical data as it relates to MAP, this fall, this time, in comparison to this time period in previous years, we are seeing double-digit gains. That chart is on one of the pages that was handed to you, where it says K2 proficiency of STEP Cycle 1. What it shows is that our students are performing better than they were pre-pandemic. And what you also see on that chart is the huge dip that occurred last year due to the pandemic, which shows that those gains are actually even higher. We believe that our achievement progress right now is due as a direct correlation to our curriculum changes that we made this year, ensuring that our curriculum is more rigorous, that it had hands-on learning, real-world connections, that it was culturally relevant, and that it pushed towards critically thinking and problem solving. While we know that curriculum is a key role in why we are seeing these academic successes, we also know that another key role to open up a strong school is to have incredibly strong talent. Therefore, at Movement, we have incorporated a new program called Principal in Residence, as well as Director of Operations in Residence. This program is a 12 to 24-month program that ensures that leaders will be prepared to be able to lead Movement schools. We are seeing success with that program. Also with the program, we are ensuring that at least 25% of any founding school staff members come from an existing Movement school, and not just at the leader end, but also on the operations end as well as the teacher end. With that, all of those things in play, we are very encouraged and excited about what is happening at Movement as it relates to the progression and the progress academically. But we know that when we start the Northwest School, it will start with a high bar. It will start with incredibly strong training and incredibly strong leaders. And we know that Northwest will go soar beyond what we are seeing currently right now at Movement. Thank you.
So we, again, just appreciate the chance to be before you all and look forward to taking your questions.
That's wonderful. Alrighty, thank you so much for that introduction, and we appreciate your patience here this afternoon as well. So the next phase that we'll go through, you'll have 25 minutes to deliberate, or we'll have 25 minutes to deliberate and pose questions for you to respond to. As a reminder, as you've probably heard previously, we have three choices today. One is to move you forward to state board recommendation. Second would be to not move you forward to state board recommendation. And the third would be for second interview, excuse me. So with that, what we'd like to do is get all the questions out on the table first so you can get a sense of what our questions are. And so I'll get off my fellow CSAB members to see what questions they'd like you to address this afternoon.
I just want to offer a comment. It's almost as if you already anticipated the questions I was going to ask about teacher recruitment. It appears that you're leveraging your school network to be able to draw from that, and the educational experience of those on the board. You've included some really dynamic leaders for your board, so I just want to say that's really great that you anticipated my questions and you addressed them in this sheet. Thank you.
Look at you. Let's see.
Well, Mr. Hurley, I have a couple of questions, and I guess the first one is about the submission of the application itself. I was absent last month when there was a movement school, 2 months ago. But there were there were a number of errors in that application. It was replete with errors to the point that I kind of shut it down. And so this one, I didn't know what to expect. But I just have to ask about it because we haven't seen any application equal to it with the credentials of your board, with the outstanding work that you're doing to submit an application that was so error-ridden with misspellings and poor grammar that it was a contradiction that I can't explain and I have to express to find out how you feel about that. Not just the fact that you submit something of that quality, but that it would indicate to me, and that's an assumption, that it wasn't read. You know what I mean? Because you wouldn't have done that, right? You wouldn't have submitted something with so many errors if you had read it. And so, I hate to bring this up, but it's like it was hard to read for me because you have to get past. Q110 had 21 errors. I mean, I wouldn't go through and count all of them, but misspelling our education terms like academic and curriculum and instruction, those kinds of things. And so it's an awesome thing, the movement. I've looked at the Movement Foundation, the Movement Mortgage, the Movement Schools. Wow, don't want to discount any of that. but it's such a contradiction to what was submitted for us to review. And it's like 100 pages, and all of us are expected to read it, right? And it results in over 5 years of over $20 million from the state of North Carolina to operate a school, and so it matters, right? And I can't just look the other way. I have to express, my reaction when I saw this. Haven't seen anything like it from, I'll just say, boards with lesser, credentials.
Yeah, and I would say, as I did before, it is an embarrassment. You can probably see it on my face. When I prepared it, I worked in a program. It's called Microsoft Notebook. And so I was cutting and pasting from Microsoft Notebook over to the program, and I clearly made a mistake with the spell check. I do know how to do a spell check, and I can't make an excuse. I don't know what happened. I hope that the depth of the thought and the work shows that I did take it seriously, and I did go to review it. And when I submitted it, I had reviewed and proofed it. That clearly did not come through, and so I can't say anything except I agree with your concern. That's not the way I strive to do my work. I do not know what happened on this application. It will not be something you see going forward.
Mm-hmm. You did write it yourself?
Yes, I wrote 100% of it myself,
okay.
And there's no one to blame but me. And somewhere between preparing it in another program and cutting and pasting it into this program, I messed up. But that's all I can say. That is not the way I strive to do business or Movement Foundation.
Right. I certainly haven't seen that anything else. In fact, I read your resume, and it was all perfect.
It is extremely embarrassing. That's all I can say. That's also, I hope the depth of the thought comes through, because this is something I worked on for a number of weeks, and with the final spell check and review, I do not know what happened.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that explanation.
Can I be reminded of where movement currently exists, what schools they have, what we've approved so far, like what
they have Movement Freedom, that's been in operation 3 years, 4? 2017. Yeah, since 2017. And then, matter of fact, they were in a renewal discussion earlier.
Yeah.
And then they have Movement Eastland, which is they're in their first year right now, correct?
It's our second year.
Second year, excuse me. And then the accelerated app for Movement Southeast was approved by this board that we actually discussed at State Board of Ed last week for discussion, and they will vote on that application in January. So 2 existing schools, 1 accelerated application, and then this application you're hearing right now.
So
3 and 4 would be in elementary, 1's the middle, is that right?
All 4 are elementary. 1 includes elementary plus middle.
That's Freedom.
Correct. And that we are only
Tim, do you mind talking to we got people listening?
Freedom is going to be our only elementary and middle. We focused in on K-5.
Okay.
So Movement Freedom, if I remember from our discussion earlier, they were late for 2 years for the audit, is that correct?
No, that's not my recollection.
They were late this year, but they submitted a reason why it was late, and Ms. McFadden said that was fine. So they're not technically late on their audit this year.
There's no data submitted, I know, from your other schools and from what you just the data that you've shared verbally, but there was nothing submitted in the application to show parent support or parent interest in the section that it asked for that. Have you conducted any surveys, or have you collected names or emails, anything to show support?
We submitted the letters of support as our evidence,
I saw
but
that.
since then, we've collected 175 signatures specifically for Movement Northwest.
Okay.
I gotta ask, I mean, you guys, I know I harped on this last time, but you guys, I respect you guys, I know what you guys do to help close the gap and the mission of educational equity. Why stop at 5th with all the resources that you guys have, the board you just talked about? I mean, I'd be chomping at the bit if I had a why stop at 5th, and how do you think that plays into the bigger conversation of educational equity if the kids are leaving your school at 5th?
I would say, I'll speak, and Kate, you can speak also. For us, I want us to be great at one thing before we try to do a lot of things. And so our goal right now is to be exceptional at K through 5th. We're actually going down to pre-K. We would love to go to middle and to high school, but right now, we also are trying to grow quickly to meet what we think is a significant need in Charlotte. And so as we see our elementary schools perform where we want them to, we'd love to go to middle and high school. Right now, the plans, our elementary kids can then flow into our middle school. And so that's why we're focused right now where we are.
But the foundation does think in the future that upper grades and
We
the
would-
high school may be in play.
Yeah, we would love to. We also, though, as the board has told us, we are trying to grow quickly to build a network. And so that's part of why we also open K1. We're trying to keep it as simple and standardized as we can to grow. With the results that we hope we get, think we will get, we definitely look beyond that to grow. Casey, would you like to add anything? Or?
You said it, but right now our focus is going to be pre-K when that comes into play. And while we know high school is definitely a beast, 3-year-olds are are definitely one as well. So that's where we really want to spend like a lot of our time. And it's going to be a new territory for us as well.
So the 3 new board members that you added, are they on any other movement school boards or any other charter school boards?
So we have one school board that leads all of the schools, and they're not on any other charter school boards.
Several of them are on the foundations board, not the charter school, but the foundation.
No.
Okay. Do they work for the foundation?
None of them work for the foundation. Michelle Donnelly works for Movement Mortgage.
Movement Mortgage.
Yep. Of the new board members.
And Carrie Ann does not Carrie Ann Thomas is not.
She's not on the board. She does work for the foundation.
She works for the foundation.
Correct. And she's an ex officio member of the board. That was advice we got from you all last time we were here.
Mm-hmm.
So
Can you
if the
describe?
state,
I'm sorry. go
so
ahead.
if the state board approves the accelerated application, and if this one would move forward, you'd have one board that governs all 4 schools?
That's correct. And that's, in my discussions with the North Carolina DPI office, my understanding is around 4 is when folks would say, okay, it's time to start breaking it up or become an EMO or CMO. So we're happy to pursue that. And I'm happy to hear otherwise that it should be done sooner, but we feel like right now with the 4, it would be okay to have it under one board. But we're also pursuing becoming a CMO.
The Lavinia curriculum, is that how you say it? Can you explain that? I don't know. I meant to look it up. But.
So yes, with the Lavinia curriculum, specifically known as Insights Humanities, it is a program that is ELA-based as well as social justice-based as well. So it is a read-in program. It includes read aloud, it includes close reading, it includes guided reading, it includes just multiple areas as it relates to literacy. So Lavinia specifically, she was, I guess you could call it the number 2 at Success Academy, which is one of the strongest organizations nationally, charter organizations nationally. She was there, built out their curriculum at Success, then branched off and created her own curriculum specifically in the ELA department because that was her strength and area of expertise. She works with now this is her, again, her company, her organization. We specifically have consultants that were past Success Academy principals that's led incredibly and results in New York City. So that's a little bit more about the curriculum.
Another item I was confused about in your application is whether or not you've identified a principal, because 8.2 under purposes said you hired a principal, and Q184 said you had not identified a principal. The one that said you did said we recruited our principal from Achievement First, Charter Network of New York, so is that?
That shows that we recruited our CEO, KTT. And so we have not identified a principal for this school,
okay.
but we do have principals in our principal residency who we are very excited about.
Okay.
You may have explained this someplace else, but talk to me about the elected teachers and teacher assistants. They don't show up in the budget. How are you taking care of that again?
Sure. So the teacher's assistants, I think some of the confusion is we actually budgeted for 2 full-time teachers in each classroom. But in some of our classrooms, like K2, we found we can do a teacher and a teacher assistant. And so we didn't have a separate line item for the teacher's assistants. For the elective teachers, we are currently using contracted individuals, so independent contractors, to come in and teach our special classes.
Which ones?
Which
Music, art. right now for the two.
PE? Is that, or is that a core teacher?
PE is there.
And we found that lets us be a little bit more efficient, so we can put more money into our core academic teachers while contracting out the special teachers.
And financial literacy is also a contract.
Well, that student-teacher ratio looks really good. And, yeah, your professional development, your ed plan looked really strong and correlated. Your budget looks good. I had a couple of questions about line items in the budget, if no one else does at this time. You have tech support at $24,000, just looking at year one, and I really didn't know what you thought that might be spent towards. And I'll just go ahead and name the other areas. Financial services, a question in the app asked who's providing that, who is that paid to, but it wasn't answered in the application. And then you have facilities, CAM, CAM, and I really didn't know what the CAM stood for, but it was like up to $10,000, up to $30,000 in the budget for that. If you could explain.
Sure.
So for the tech support, that is a contract we have with Steve Joyner Consulting, and he provides tech support for a number of different movement schools, and it purchases a portion of one of his people's time, and that's everything from getting our wireless network set up to we do one-to-one computer technology. So you can imagine there's a lot of password resetting and things like that that go on with that. With our financial services, we transitioned from Acadia to Prestige this year, so we'll be moving forward with Prestige, serving all of our charter schools. And CAM stands for Central Area Maintenance Charge, and that is a fee that comes from that provides for the central the maintenance of, say, things like parking lots, trees in the parking lots, and because a number of our locations have multiple tenants, everyone pitches into that central area maintenance.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I see funding for your software and your hardware and your library books. It all seem to be accounted for.
And this budget is built on the actuals from previous schools, and so each year we've been able to dial it in, I think, better and better to know what to expect.
So your contingency plan for your facility, I believe you said you would, if it wasn't built in time, which you have, what, 2 years, that you would use movement freedom? So they would still have space in 2 years from now? Because I think that was the same contingency plan for movement. Was it southwest?
Southwest. That was the latest.
Yeah. So we at Movement Freedom, we do think there will still be space. It is a very large facility, and half of it is also a community center. It's called the Ophelia Garman Brown Community Center, where we actually have additional community classrooms. And so if we were concerned that we wouldn't be able to complete this facility, we would look to transition some of those community classrooms and community spaces over into academic places. We also have room at that site for mobile units if that were necessary. We do not expect that to be necessary, but that is our initial contingency plan.
So you potentially could have space for both, is what you're saying?
Correct. Or for Movement Southwest and for Movement Northwest, I think that would be tight. Movement Southwest, thankfully, is progressing very well. And if you'd like to hear more, I can bring Garrett up, who is leading that. But we are not concerned about the occupancy of Movement Southwest.
Yeah, I was just concerned because it was a contingency plan for both schools.
Oh, really? And so that brings up the meal plan. One school's preparing meals, or the vendors at one school preparing meals, and then they're shipping it to the other school. Have you done that before? Is that being done anywhere else, and does that work?
Yeah, I can share. That's what we're doing at Movement Eastland right now.
Okay.
One of the things that we are focused on is also having a positive economic impact on our community. So the group that's preparing the meals, it's called Two Guys in a Kitchen. They're local to West Charlotte. They've been leading the meals at Movement Freedom for as long as we've been in existence, so I guess 5 years at this point. And one of the ways that we achieve efficiency with them is they prepare it at our central kitchen in Freedom, move it over to Eastland where we have a warming kitchen. So we're doing that right now. We plan to expand that to additional schools. And
it's two guys doing all that?
It's called, they're professional chefs. No, it's when they started, they called it Two Guys in a Kitchen. But they're both professional chefs, and we were actually their first food contract, or first school food contract.
The facility.
Actually, this is Bruce. How are we doing on time?
We've got 17, we've completed 17
Yeah, we
minutes.
still have 17 minutes. So we have 8 minutes.
I guess I have a question. I was thinking about the facility, but I think it's understood.
Do we have any more questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none, would you like to go ahead and give your closing statement?
Sure. Again, as I shared, I just appreciate the chance to come before this board. We are focused on building a network of schools, and I think that will be a valuable addition to both the charter network, the charter ecosystem in Charlotte and the state. Research from multiple parties have identified that networks of charter schools tend to overall have a better quality. And we have some amazing independent operators here in the state, here at this table. I think they would also agree that it is very hard to do what they do. And so part of our goal is to grow quickly to scale so that we can have shared resources, common curriculums, common professional development across our charter schools that's going to help us serve our students with quality. We are working hard to learn from the best in the nation with Achievement First, Uncommon, IDEA. Those are three networks I look up to a lot because they have scaled successfully. They've shown that we can provide exceptional opportunities for low-income students, not just as one amazing school, but as a replicable model. And that is what we're working like crazy to do in Charlotte. This has been my life's work. Right out of college 20 years ago, I was a fourth grade teacher at a low-income school in Mississippi. After that, I attended law school where I studied law and education. I thought maybe we can pass some different laws to help our students learn better. I spent a lot of time and became convinced that actually the best way is to recruit more people into the field and start to build schools a different way. I led Teach for America here in the state for 9 years. I stewarded approximately $30 million in state funding, matched by an equal amount of private funding to put that to work to try to recruit great teachers and leaders for our low-income students. During that time, I also tried to recruit Achievement First to come here to North Carolina. I tried to recruit Uncommon to come here to North Carolina. I tried to recruit IDEA too, and I was unsuccessful with all of them because they're so busy growing where they are. But one of my passions is now to build our own network here in the state that's serving students again and again at the same level that we see those students serving their students. So again, I appreciate the chance to come before you to share this opportunity with you. I think the pandemic has made our work even more important as parents are looking for different options for their students. And so I'm so excited to launch the school 2 years ahead of time with enough planning so we can launch it serving our students well on day one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that very much. We certainly appreciate your time this afternoon and the answers that you provided to our questions. So I'll hand it off to our fellow CSEB members. We have 10 minutes for our own deliberations. What are our thoughts? We'd like to go first.
I mean, I think one of my concerns coming in was really the demand for the school and having the interest. And, you know, just being another school, one of, you know, potentially number 4. But you answered our questions, as Terry Steve said, you kind of anticipated those before we came in. Same with teacher recruitment.
So I have this marked as a standard application, but I heard someone talk about fast track.
The one that was before us before was fast track.
Southwest.
So,
Okay, this is standard.
so if this one moved forward, they would potentially have 2 this year. 2 approved
Because
this year,
of-
but one would be next year's opening and one would be the following year.
Yeah, I mean, I said it before with the other application. I think they have the right people with the right background. You heard Tim's background. You heard KTT's background. They're bringing in talent both on the board. I think they're expanding in the correct way. I think Tim's right when he says that as they build a network, they're going to be able to kind of rising tides lift all ships and be able to help all the schools reach scale in a way that's just smart. They're going to share resources really well. again, I hope that the future does include higher grades. I think the mission needs it, and they need organizations that have the type of talent and resources to do it. But for what they are applying for, I think they'll hit home runs. I think they'll be really good. And, if I'd be prepared to make a motion to move them forward.
Yeah, I think this could go straight to the state board. They answered all of our questions, and I guess the one thing I would say is it probably is time for a CMO or some larger structure to oversee the 4 schools if this one's approved. And that'll just give you an opportunity perhaps to bring in even more talent, even more board members. So, but I feel very comfortable with this application.
I was thinking the same way, looking at the construction, the board representation, that it sort of felt like the CMO is the board to a degree, and in a way it is in part, I guess, but ultimately the board may become the CMO. I mean, we kind of see that happening. I don't know if is it a problem at this point, or is it just that's how it works? Sort of what I was asking myself, is there any conflict with the board also making the decisions of the CMO, making the decisions for the school? And I'm thinking about the facility and the cost of things. So the foundations, providing a lot up front and helping, then ultimately the foundation owns the property, which is, is being paid for and leased through the student enrollment. So just questions of that's how these organizations develop, and that's where this school and this network are in that process.
I will say that, and I'll make the motion, but I mean, Cheryl and I have worked in a different way of growing an organization where you weren't able to get somebody of Tim's caliber in the beginning and be a real architect. You had to grow into that. I mean, I was basically a 4th grade level chair until I became a principal, and then we have enough kids, you can be a CEO now. But it doesn't happen like that. So I think movement, being able to allocate those resources to have that architect up front is really going to pay dividends that a normal organization or an organization with lesser resources wouldn't be able to do. And that's why I have such confidence. I will make a motion to move movement. I gotta get the right Northwest forward to, I guess, to state board for approval. How do I say?
Ready
Ready to open. I'm sorry, I'm rusty.
I'll second.
Was that Todd or Terry?
Okay, so we have a motion to move movement Northwest forward to state board for approval. We have a second. Further discussion. I have a question. So if this becomes their 4th school, am I correct in understanding that, I just want to make sure I remember the other schools. They have another school opening up next year on accelerated, correct? And then another school that we haven't discussed yet, but is being recommended for a 3-year renewal. Am I correct in this statement?
Yeah, that's the mission.
Mr. Friend, they have 2 schools operating right now, Movement Freedom and Movement Eastland. And then Movement Southeast was approved to take the state board for accelerated. And then this one will open on a normal timeline. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. But one of their existing schools is being recommended for a 3-year renewal. Is that correct?
Correct. Because they only had 1 year of data, and it was a D school.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from board members? Again, we have a motion and we have a second. Okay, hearing none. Actually, I think we're ready to go for a vote. I'll let you do the roll call vote.
All right, Bruce Friend,
Aye.
Todd Godby,
Aye.
Terry Stoops,
Aye.
Lynn Kroger,
Aye.
Rita Hare,
Aye.
Hilda Farley,
Approves.
John Eldridge,
Aye.
and Eric Sanchez.
Aye.
All right, it passes unanimously, and it will go to state board with all of your other recommendations, probably not for a couple of months. So we'll keep you guys posted.
Thank you.
And we are done, but we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, please. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.